Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Smoking big cigars. I hope you're ready for what's coming now. I'm the one, I'm the lady that would bring you down. There's a joint on the corner where the big boys play, where the whiskey's running like the river, but they all never come for the booze and bass. I'm the one, I'm the lady that'll rock this place. That'll rock this place. That'll rock this place. Rock this place. Rock this place. Rock this
Welcome to Winning in the Workplace, where we help executives, managers, and supervisors become great leaders by becoming more aligned, more collaborative with each other and across departments. All right, I'm your host, Maurice Velasquez. We're broadcasting this podcast live on Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, on Spotify, LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, and now also Apple Podcasts and iTunes. To find me on these platforms, simply type Maurice Velasquez or Winning in the Workplace. Also, visit me at my website at mauricetraining.com. There you can register yourself and your team to our upcoming Leadership Alignment Summit training. Book me to speak at one of your events or at conferences, or come speak to your team, and also where you can download my books and access my video library. Okay, we have a great show today. I have Paige Gagliano with us. I've known Paige for years. I'm excited to have her here. So let me set this up. Every meeting is a scene. When we go throughout the day in our workplace, we're always on stage. When we have to make adjustments, we need to pivot and improv. And when we face challenges, we need to step back and create certain kind of gaps. You see, all those are acting techniques and phrases that come from the theater world. Well, Paige is a seasoned theater director, and she's going to show us and discuss with us how she uses theater skills and how we can all learn how to use theater skills and exercises to improve connections and to improve performance for all of us in the workplace. Before we bring Paige on the stage with us here, I want to talk about, here in this beginning of the show segment, a topic that comes up a lot and is very critical to being a good manager, and that is the whole idea of personalities, managing personalities, aligning personalities, how to manage different personalities. Why do personalities have so much conflict with one another? As a matter of fact, a different title that's often given to this whole topic of personalities is, how do I work with difficult people? Okay, or how do I work with personalities that are difficult? Okay, it's funny because no sooner do you attend one of those workshops, as I did when I first started my coaching career, I went actually to one that said how to work with difficult people, only to find out that I am actually someone's difficult person, because we have different personalities. And so the way that we behave or we approach problem-solving discussions, ideas, we tend to frustrate the other people who don't like that approach, who have the opposing approach. So you tend to be someone's difficult personality, and then, you know what, I don't like working with certain personalities because we can kind of smell each other real far from a mile away. I can tell who the enthusiastic people are. I can tell those that are talkers. I can tell those that are the introverts. And so we tend to gravitate toward those that we already have this predisposition for, and that's all having to do with personality. So we have to teach each other the skills of what to do to overcome those differences. Let me give you a quick world tour around them. So for example, you have your fast and your risky individual. Then you have your enthusiastic and you're not so detailed person. Then you have your steady individual who's not very fast. And then you have your very accurate and very analytical individual, but they definitely do not move very quickly to action. So we need all those things. We need fast. We need people that are good risk takers. We need enthusiastic. We need enthusiasm in the building. We need enthusiasm in the conversations. We need detail. We need people that are steady, that are consistent. We also need those that are analytical and detailed. So we all need to bring these things to the table, but all of us can't bring all of these things. So our personalities, we tend to bring some of those things, but yet the opposing things tend to be what the other person brings, which does competition with what I bring. So if I'm an enthusiastic person, which tends to not be very detailed, well, the detailed person is not going to react to my enthusiasm very well, and I'm going to spot that. And so all that is, how do we put on the right hat at the right time in the right place? If I'm called into a meeting to have a deep discussion about an analysis on the budget, then if you're a high enthusiastic person, you need to take that hat off and learn to come in with a different hat on. But if I've never practiced that, or I refuse to be that detailed, then I'm not going to perform as well on that stage, meaning in that meeting. So anyway, we could spend a whole podcast on it. As a matter of fact, we will, and I've already done some. Go to my video library and you'll get a lot there already defining and layering this. But now I'm just really excited about bringing Paige on stage. Paige, if you're still there, come on in. I hope my people have taken good care of you, giving you coffee. Yeah, turn your, there you go. All
Hi,
right.
I am.
Hey, how are you?
Yes, I need coffee. It was great. Thank you.
It was good.
I'm excited. Thank you.
I'm sorry we didn't give you coffee. Okay. So anyway, hey, great to have you. It's good to be here. In all full disclosure, I have to disclose to everybody, Paige and I know each other from the 9th grade. Okay. We went to high school together. We were in theater. Paige, how many shows did we do together?
Probably about 672. Or maybe 8 or 9.
About 8 or 9. No, we did a whole lot more.
about-
Around the junior or senior, you started taking on the director role.
I did.
You and several other students started. Then we also moved into music theater. You were involved in that. And so, yeah, I've had the experience of not just being a student with Paige, but she took off really well, really fast early on in our little career there as a director. So I've seen her in both. Fantastic actress, fantastic teamwork person, very collaborative, and a good director, a really good director. And then, of course, that's what you went on and did. So listen, I know we're about to get into, you heard what I just said, okay? Give me your thoughts.
One thing struck me. You talked about the competition with the personalities. What if in our workplace, we could leave our egos at that door, take off that hat, and we're not in competition. We are actually collaborators that understand one another's gifts, can merge them together and get to a better place.
That's not as fun, though. I mean, you know,
it's more fun.
It's a lot funner to bring in ego and create drama and tension. I mean, you know.
No, it's exhausting. The ego is exhausting. Being worried about how you appear is exhausting. Now I'm going to take it to the theater realm. After 35 years of teaching, directing, executive this and development this, what have I learned? I've learned that in the theater realm, when we stop worrying about how we look, how we sound, if what we said is correct, but we keep focused on our objective. What is it that we want, and how are we going to get what we want?
Don't go too far, because I got to introduce you.
You got it. I won't.
This is Paige. So everybody, this is Paige. Great to have you. So Paige, up front, tell us the name of your company, your website, your email address, so we can know how to contact you. So what is it?
Creating connections.
I love it. Creating
I
connections.
know, don't you? And PaigeGagliano.com. Easy.
Spell it for us.
PaigeGagliano.com.
Perfect. And your email address?
Even easier. PaigeGagliano@me.com.
Perfect. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You and I have already talked about it. We went to high school together. What happened after that? And give us a synopsis of your career and why you are and where you are, or who you are, what you're doing now.
Yes, everything that I am now has unfolded in front of me and was not what I planned. Went to school, got my master's as an educator, and that's where I was going. And as you said, I started directing when I was in high school, and that was my passion. Before long, fell into directing and teaching theater, then was an executive director at Theater Baton Rouge for a while, development director of the Arts Council. We opened Manship Theater, became a development director, all the while still directing in the community and working at Episcopal, Dunham, and directing educational theater as well as professional theater. And I've learned a lot about personalities coming together.
Yeah, that's great. So go ahead. Especially what?
Especially when you're working with young adults, but especially when you're working with anybody in that realm of theater, it's terrifying. It is terrifying to ask someone.
It is. I understand you pause, but I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about humans, right? And so it's about humans coming out of high school, coming to college, learning these skills. So we can definitely talk about that. So a little bit more about yourself. You won an award. You're not just local, right? You've done some things outside of the state. Tell us about that.
I have. I've directed Evangeline, the musical for LPB, which is aired internationally with Broadway stars. And the whole while thinking, I'm a third grade teacher.
That's great.
But understanding the fear, facing it, and tapping into the gifts that I had to bring, understanding what I could do to work to bring all of us together for this one goal.
That's great. Okay, so then I think I cut you off to introduce you that your experience as a teacher, director, and everything is, just something about people. We tend to hold each other back, right? So let me just segue us back into major talking points and tell us about all that.
Yeah, sure. What we're seeing in the workplace is exactly what I see on stage. You have so many different people coming together, and fear really does exist. What are we afraid of? We're afraid of making mistakes. We're afraid of being vulnerable. We're afraid of walking into that meeting and maybe not having all the answers. So what if we were to create an environment that was safe, that celebrated those risks, that celebrated those obstacles, that celebrated people putting themselves out there? And that's the only way that you can achieve on stage. It's the only way you can achieve in a classroom. As a leader, that was the only way I could achieve with my team.
Can it be taught to not fear? We actually learn to overcome that fear.
No. You did not expect me to say that. No, I welcome it. I welcome it because when the fear is there, that means that you're excited about it. That means that it means something to you. That means that there's a passion that's connected to it.
I'm not trying to get rid of the fear.
No, it's a part of you. What you do is you say, I'm going to sit right next to it. And hi, how are you? We got this. And we're going to go. And it's a safe space.
So if I use your language, if I don't make friends with it, that's almost part of denying it, or what?
It will overtake you. You've seen people on stage and they're out there and that fear overtakes them because they don't address it. So once the fear is right next to you, right before you walk into a meeting, right before you walk on stage to do a presentation, right before that fear is like, oh, girl or guy, we don't have this. We don't have this. And you go, you know what? We do. I got this.
All right. So it's learning how to carry that fear with you, and it's learning how to interact with it and how to leverage it, right?
Channeling it, and it becomes your energy and your drive, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. I'm a little bit, I can already tell that you can tell that I'm a little stunned because you're going to go that way. I thought we prepared our notes. You didn't tell me about this.
Well, you're right. So sorry about that. But it's
no. But this is good because just you saying that, whenever my fear pops up, I tend to take the opposite approach of, don't get close to me. You're not part of me. This is something that I'm trying to do away with, and I'm not leveraging into it. So yeah, I have not been approaching fear the way you're describing. This is really good. I mean, this is very insightful. Everybody, I'm learning right here. This is good. This is good. This is great. I like the idea you brought up earlier about not being competitive, but getting collaboration. And so keep expounding. Tell me some more about where you want to go.
With my experience with actors, okay. Yes, they come onto the stage. When you're an actor and you create that character, what do you know about that character? You create an entire background. That background of that character will dictate the tactics that character uses on stage to get what they want. So let's translate that to what your conversation was about, personalities.
Yeah, personalities. And particularly at the stage of going into a meeting where we're going to talk about the budget, and I'm not a budget detailed numbers person.
So that's your character, right?
That's the character they need me to be. And that's the character I don't like being because I'm not good at that.
So your background knowledge coming in is, oh my gosh, I can't do this, or this is not a part of me. What if we could train people to address that, but then flip it on its head and say, no, my objective in this meeting is to learn. My objective in this meeting is to listen. My objective is to give the information that I have. And what if I actually am more of a detailed person than I give myself credit for?
No, that's good. Those of you that are watching, if you're noticing this face right here, I am blow away number 2. Okay?
I know.
The opposition or the complaint or the critique I often hear is, Maurice, I got to be genuine. I got to be me. And so I'm hearing you say is, we're not talking about not being genuine. We're talking about learning how to be that character because you need that character at that moment. So
Yeah,
it's learning how to operate and learn what's probably in there. I just don't know how to tap into it because I've always told myself, I'm not that person. I'm not that person. I'm not that person.
yeah. No. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that
Well,
to
I know
yourself.
that.
Yeah,
I know that.
tapping
So,
into authenticity. You have to
okay.
be authentic. All sat in a play or a movie, and we can tell that the actor is really only out there for themselves, not communicating with others, but they're much more absorbed with how they sound or what they look like. That ego is present, and they're not really listening to their scene partners. They're not really listening, and they're not there for the audience to get some information from. They're just to look good and sound good. I don't want to go to that inauthentic play. And that's why some plays don't touch us. But we've been in the theater before where an actor and their character, they are going for their objective in such a real and authentic manner that all of a sudden we're touched in a way that we never believed we could be.
So the phrase share the stage is so often said at meetings. Guys, you need to share the stage. You need to share the microphone. That's what you're talking about. It's just, first of all, what you said, first thing is put the ego down. You have other players, let other players say their lines, listen to those lines, tap in. Don't just always be worried about what you're saying and not recognizing that it's an ensemble of conversation, right?
Has to be an ensemble where we respect one another and appreciate the gifts that are coming to the table. Now, another thing you said about being a detail-oriented person, which I challenge you, you are very detail-oriented.
I appreciate
You
that.
are. You're very good at that. When you and I are a scene partner, and you know what my strength is, and I know what your strength is,
Right.
You work as my scene partner to make me look good on stage.
Ooh.
What if we took that to the meeting? I know where Marie
Ooh.
shines.
Ooh,
You know
that's
where
good.
Paige shines. Let's work in that meeting to elevate that person. It's a win-win.
If you can grab 7 or 8 executives and teach them how to do this, I mean,
Yes.
talk about connections, talk about alignment, talk about effective meetings, talk about effective decision making, because again, you lower the ego, you're focusing on the ensemble, everyone's got a place, you're here, and then it's really learning how to leverage each other. So anybody, any team, managers, up and down, across,
100%.
this is extremely applicable.
Oh, 100%. I've seen it. One of the first rules of improv, right?
What?
Of improvisation.
Improv,
It's what we did every day in class and had so much fun. I have stories, but I know you have stories too. So I'm gonna.
Oh, I know.
Remember,
You and I agreed. You and I agreed.
Yeah.
No stories. None of those stories. Okay.
No. But in improv, we're taught to whatever your scene partner brings out there, take it in. For example, if you and I were improvising a scene and I said, "Oh, it's so hot in here," and you said, "Wait, no, it isn't. It's cold." Well, all of a sudden you just threw me under the bus. I have no idea what to do with that.
That happens so much in business meetings.
Yes.
That happens so much in business meetings. If everyone's always improvising, yeah, you got to stay on the point. Yeah. So there's got to be a limit. But yes, it happens all the time. Someone needs to chase a rabbit because that rabbit is the point at that moment. And that person, you can tell, is going in the right direction, but it was improv. And then no sooner that happens, the other one just shuts that down and brings the rabbit back. And it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to say anything. I mean, right?
No.
Paige, that happens all the time.
All the time. Why not look at that partner and go, "Oh, wait, you're hot? Because I'm feeling cold." Oh, something could happen. So what you do is you take that person's idea and you affirm it and you build them. And then they're part of a team. Because the other option is to push them away.
And the audience can tell.
Oh, certainly.
That's the big hit I'm getting right now, is that those others that are watching, like an audience in a theater, you can tell that when somebody has shut down somebody else's improv or moment of improv, we can feel it. It kind of smells up that scene. But when it's done well, the audience can't tell.
No.
Because you can't tell if you're improvising or not, because there's a dance and everyone knows how to improv. Look, I tell you, this is great. Could you do a whole 45 minutes on teaching a group how to improv?
I could probably do 45 hours on it, definitely.
For those listening out there,
Yeah,
I can't bring you in for 45 hours.
No.
Okay.
But one thing you said, so let's say it's not an improv, let's say it's a scripted. Even in scripted moments, for example, you and I at a meeting, Okay. I know what I'm going to say. You know what you're going to say.
The meaning that comes to mind in that is you and I are going to go meet with the board. And so
Yes.
we're going to present. And so we have to kind of practice our talking points. So that's scripted. Is that what you're
Oh,
talking
it's
about?
scripted. Exactly.
Okay. So
And
we have an
I-
audience, we have a target. All right, continue. Go ahead.
Mhm. And I show up and I throw you a curveball. I throw something different that you haven't
No,
had.
you would never do that to me. You would never do that to me, would you?
If it's a great idea that comes
It's
up,
Paige, it's Paige Gagliano. If anything,
I
I'm
can't
learning
help it.
curveball.
I can't help it. I mean,
All right, go ahead. All right, so
and-
you throw me a curveball, and what happens?
yeah, and you have the choice to affirm it, to take it, to what we call in theater language, to yes it, to yes and build on it.
To yes, and. Yes,
Yes,
and.
and.
There's the yes, and. Okay.
There's the yes
You
and.
don't-
If we treated meetings like that, where we yes and everybody, where we yes and one another, where we say, oh, okay, this is where you're going with this. Am I hearing this correctly? Rather than, nope, that's not what we're talking about right now. It's going to be a much more collaborative process. One of the tricks I used when I was in the classroom was the teachers from the year before will give you folders on this kid and that kid, and this kid thinks this way, and this kid does this, and this kid does that. And I take all those kids and I put them on the first row, and I speak to them that they are the most well-behaved, the most intelligent, the most insightful children ever. And guess what they are? And they become what they never even thought they could become. Now,
Right.
that's not to say I'm not in a Pollyanna world where no, that problem didn't exist with that child. But what I do is I yes and it. 2 + 2. It's 5. Oh, okay, Mark, where are you getting that from? Well, if I put this and this together, I see where you are.
Right,
What if we look at it this way? Well, all of a
Right.
sudden, Mark's mistake and his failure was an opportunity to learn.
So you're not saying that 2 and 2 plus is 5. You're just saying that in conversations, oftentimes people say wrong things or they're heading in the wrong direction. It's how to not create that boom, I want to stop you, but rather carry the conversation back to the scene properly so that it's a much more pleasant, professional conversation.
And also, if you do that, if you become curious of
Okay.
that person's thought process, you learn more about them.
So then instead of coming in with judgment and saying, no, 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 it's kind of like, okay, so how'd you get to 5? Become that reporter, become, how do you say, become inquisitive?
Become curious.
Okay.
Become
So
curious.
far I picked up on this. I was writing, I was taking notes. I wasn't,
Oh, I didn't know.
I wasn't checking my stocks, even though I'm doing fine right now. Here's some of the things you've said. Stage, coming on stage, being in character, taking on the right character, the voice, the yes and, improv. There's 5 or 6 right there. Those are theater terms that are very common in everyday talk, but they're also very common in the workplace.
100%.
So you're taking these concepts, you're taking these disciplines, these practices, the often used phrases, and you're taking them out of theater or from theater into the workplace and say, guys, gals, this is how you use these skills to become better in the work.
Yes, that's it, 100%. To become more open, more vulnerable, more collaborative.
Got it. So earlier on, I want to dive into this area. Earlier on, you told me about the biggest obstacle that you find of why this is so important. So I don't want to steal your thunder. Tell us a little bit about that. We talked about earlier, and told me what you felt the biggest obstacles were. I was like, man, you better talk about that. So here's your 5 minutes. Go.
Yes, fear of failure. And the irony is that we say, oh, you're going to grow from failures. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn. But when people make mistakes, then they're chastised or they're ejected from the meeting or they're pushed aside.
All right. So earlier, before we started, you told me something that I got to hear more about, because again, you're saying a lot of things, you catching me very, not by surprise, but they're just really good. That the major obstacle you're finding of why this is so needed and what's happening to corporate America, and you even called it an epidemic. Expound on that.
Isolation.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by
You
that?
feel alone. You feel alone. You feel unseen, unheard, misunderstood. Then you go back, then it grows to you're unnecessary and you check out.
You're saying that this is very rampant in the workplace.
It's an epidemic. The more connected we are, this is the irony. The more connected we are as a culture, the less connected we are.
All right. So whenever we hear coaches, consultants, programs, when we all talk about culture and all talk about building a great culture, it's for this purpose, right? It's because there is a real need out there that we don't feel heard, we don't feel seen, and then our ideas and our thoughts don't go anywhere.
Exactly. We keep them in and then we cloak with this isolation and we kind of bubble wrap ourselves to keep from feeling any pain. And what
And
you're
yet,
doing, when you're an employer and you have all these employees with all those different personalities that you mentioned, celebrating that by coming together, understanding where everyone is coming from, and bringing them in to interlock into the conversation.
I guess what's just difficult is just how connected we all are. And yet, when you talk about feeling isolated, I mean, I thought we were connecting more, but I'm hearing you say we're not connecting.
Yeah, when we're in our devices. I mean, I was in the airport the other day and looking around, everyone on their device. I missed the time when you were sitting next to somebody. You could say, "Hi, I'm Paige. Hi, I'm so," and learn and connect and grow. That's when my greatest growth is. That's what happens when I reach out and communicate with somebody.
I see it because that same behavior, we're taking it into the cafeteria at the office. We're all sitting around in the lunchroom and everyone's on their phones and we're just not creating connections.
And when we're on social media, are we really creating connections? If I post on Facebook, I'm going to post the best picture and I'm going to tell you everything that's going on. That's my A-roll.
Sure. Yeah, no, without a doubt.
Yeah, I'm not going to post my B-roll.
Yeah, right.
It's completely inauthentic.
I see the difference of what you bring to the table in comparison to many other coaches and many other consultants. It feels very, very unique. I like the fact, first of all, anybody who taps into movies and theaters and uses those, that's pretty smart. We all enjoy movies. We all enjoy theater. So it's a great tool. But you're taking it to a degree further, and that is, hey, let's not leave it at that point. Let's take the tools that actually work in stage and let's teach professionals and people in the workplace. That is incredibly unique. Am I seeing it correctly? There's not a whole lot of folks saying this out there.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I haven't heard people do this. And it all comes from sitting in board meetings and saying, wow, if they implemented what we use to bring an ensemble together or cast together, or if they implemented a tool that was used for an actor that's a little too scared to go outside, outside on that stage, if we use that, we would have a really effective workplace.
If I can get my people to connect, then we can connect them about everything. But if I can't get them to connect because of the many things you brought up, then they're not going to connect well about the projects, about the deadlines, about the deliverables, about cohesiveness and yada, yada. They're not going to listen to each other.
No, if you're terrified that when you go in and say, you wanted this by today, it can't happen until Monday because your boss will then shoot you down and blame you. Well, guess what? You're going to use the old escape and avoidance and not be a part of the team. Go in, tell them, hey, you wanted this. I said I could do it. I'm not able to. And that boss meets you with what's going on. We
got a few minutes left. I got a couple more questions. So what do your workshops look like? I mean, so if you were in the middle of a workshop and I walk in and say, what would that look like?
You'd see people on their feet. They first walk in, they go, I'm just going to sit. I'm not going to actually participate. I go, oh, no worries. You don't have to do anything. Within 30 minutes, everyone's up. Everyone's up. What you're going to see is the creative process, Maurice.
Nice.
The creative process. It's messy. It's really messy. How to make the sausage, what happens behind the screen, what happens behind the curtain. But in that messiness comes discovery. So you'll see people improving a scene, having an objective that is in opposition to the other person's objective. And how are we going to work together to work this out?
I've seen you do the hundreds of time in theater. You're telling me that you can take this, get a bunch of professionals, get a bunch of managers, get a bunch of frontliners, supervisors, people with differing agenda, and teach those same skills and then apply it to workplace stuff that's relevant and I can then take on because we just practice together. Is that what we're talking about?
1,000%. One of my favorite things to do is when the participants will give me a problem that's happening in their actual workplace.
An actual problem. Okay.
An actual problem. You are my supervisor and you are so demanding that I am frightened of you. Okay. And the problem is that we'll go back to the same example. You want this project done by Monday. I can't get it done by Monday. It's going to have to be Wednesday. Well, then the two of us will go up to do the scene, but we reverse roles. So now the boss then has to play the role of the
That's good.
employee.
That's
And then
good.
that empathy.
That's really
comes in.
good, Paige.
I
That's
know.
really good.
I like
That's
that.
really good. So in my workshop, I usually say, we don't know how to have good meetings because we don't practice meetings. And of course, I usually get teams to practice meetings. You're taking it to a different level. You're taking it like 6 feet, and you're basically saying, no, we're actually going to practice.
We're doing it.
You're actually creating the theater behind the curtains, dress rehearsal.
Yes.
So that when it's time to put on the tires, we have practiced and we've drilled this over and over, and now it's performance. And when we
Yes.
mess up, we just try it again and do it again. That's what you're bringing in.
That's what I'm bringing. And
That's
also,
awesome.
when you're taking on my role and you have to be the frontline worker, and I'm taking on your role as the executive, I've been in my mind going, I mean, this guy is so demanding. I mean, why doesn't he understand? You're thinking, this girl, she's not getting it
Yeah,
done.
but if we switch roles, now it's a different thing. Because if I'm a buyer, I want to feel certain things I'm going to say. But if I become the seller, then I'm going to take off. All right, so what's that exercise called?
The empathy. Oh, that's role play. That comes straight out of Theater of the Oppressed.
Yeah.
We have to switch the role. I can't believe that guy's doing that. Well, then you have to become that guy in the scene.
I think you were going to say Socrates, right?
Socrates. No, Augusta Ball.
Oh, that's got it.
Great.
Again, I thought you were going to go somewhere else, and then you said empathy. The role reversal, okay, is the role playing, and then the ad-libbing comes into that. But what you learn on a character level is the issue of empathy. You actually learn how to step into mindset and the place where the other person is at.
That's the only way you're going to understand them.
That's awesome. I need that extra. I need you to come in, grab my team, I'm going to do it, because they always tell me that, Mars, you don't listen, you don't do it. Right. So I have another question, and let's finish off with this. If it's can, then of course you have the last word. Can we take this also into the interpersonal world? Have you experienced that? Have you used that? Talk to us about that.
Definitely. I've done it with businesses, actually, where there's conflict of personalities in the workplace, and we get together. And once we work together and create something together, then we are bonded.
Awesome.
We are bonded.
Awesome.
And you understand that person so much better. So when something comes up in the workplace, we've been to battle with one another. I mean, you know what it is to produce a show. We've risked. Do you know the number one fear that people have?
No.
Number two is death.
Well, I think I know what the first one is, but you go ahead. So
Public speaking.
Public speaking. Right.
Public speaking. So everyone that comes in my workshop, but then when they sit there and they create, and guess what? I put them with a scene with somebody that they may not be working really well together with in the workplace, because I know that beforehand, because I've talked to the managers, and they get to create together. That's who they
awesome.
are. That's
awesome.
Theirs forever.
No, seriously, you and I have talked about this now for months. Yes. Let's set up. You got to do my team. Okay?
I'd love to. Thank you.
All right. So give us some last thoughts. Anything, a huge takeaway? Anything you want to leave us with? Your closing statements. You got the last word.
Yeah, my last word is that to desensitize us in the workplace is missing the whole point. And what I mean by that is to not understand that, relationships are messy. It's messy and it's hard. But if we leave that ego at the door, we understand that fear is going to be there, but we also understand that person is going to support us. Our team member, we can do anything.
All right. So Paige, let me ask you. So these skills, how do they fit, and how do we incorporate them into interpersonal skills, and what's the value there? And tie all that in for me. Speak to that.
Sure. In theater, on the stage, when an actor takes a role, what they do is they understand what their character's objective is, or what they want. Now, what they want, their goal, their objective is achieved through tactics. And a tactic is, what am I willing to do to get what I want? Okay. So that defines your character. And it's always informed by your past life experiences, the life experiences that have led you up to that moment. Sure. If you're playing a character on stage, you're never playing a bad person. But if they're doing something that's off color, it's usually because of their experiences that they've had. Now, you can address that to the workplace and address that to life. Each employee goes in with a goal, an objective. I'm going to have a great day as a barista at this wonderful coffee shop. I'm going to serve my patrons well. My tactic, I'm going to listen. That's what I'm going to do. But just like everything that's around us, there will be a conflict. There will be an obstacle.
And what we're an obstacle, correct.
What we're not doing, and especially in theater, there has to be an obstacle or there's no play. But what we don't do with our employees is give them the tools in which they know how to pivot when that obstacle comes.
Well, first of all, to assume the conflict, don't be so surprised that the conflict's there. And now you're saying we can learn tactics and skills on how to overcome that obstacle correctly in the proper way.
Exactly. So I'm a barista at your coffee shop, and I'm working very hard, but you are unhappy with your coffee and you come at me and you are upset. Now, my knee-jerk reaction is to get back upset with you and to fight with you. But if I do that, then I'm really not working towards my super objective, which was to have a great day at this coffee shop and to be employed at this coffee shop.
And so I kill the scene. I kill the scene. Let me use your term. I actually just kill the scene if I react that way.
Exactly. So we need to train our employees to be able to take a step back, to recognize that this person is not upset with me. They're upset because they didn't get what they wanted, which was a hot, wonderful cup of coffee.
That's all they wanted.
So I take a second as an employee and I switch my tactic. So my tactic now is going to be to work to understand where this customer is coming from.
And I guess a surprising thing, you actually use these tactics in theater.
The only way to get a scene done is
but
that
what's interesting is had I not known that you were talking theater, I'd have said, well, yeah, that's what we need to teach people in the workplace. So it's like, it's the correlation is just such a good fit between the two. That's why it makes sense using theater skills to improve professionalism and connections in the workplace.
100%.
Awesome. Paige, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Tell us again how to find you. Tell us your website and your email address information.
Sure. PaigeGagliano.org or PaigeGagliano@me.com.
Wonderful. And again, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. I will have you back on again. If you're willing to come back, it would be great to have you. All right, everybody. Thank y'all very much. All right. So coming up next week, we have John Shirk in the studio with us. He is going to show us and he's going to blow us away with incredible insight on why companies are not going to find good talent in this market. I'm going to say it again, how we are not going to find good talent in this marketplace unless we know and understand the major shifts that have happened in recruitment in the last 3 years and how we need to rethink our approach to recruitment, how to do it differently. And then the week after that, we have David Day. He's going to really show us and talk to us how digital marketing and advertising has radically changed the market in the last 3-4 years and the ability for companies to know how to get their messages out and increase sales. You do not want to miss these. All right, so if you want to be a guest on my show, go to my podcast page and fill out the guest form. I would love to have you on the show. The page is winningintheworkplacepodcast.com. Again, winningintheworkplacepodcast.com. All right, remember, at the core of leadership is leaders and managers showing a united front with the other leaders and managers in the organization. It's basically being on the same page, speaking a united message, being a cohesive team. That level of alignment is the difference and your competitive edge. By aligning well is how you and your team can win in the workplace. See you next week.